Hey everybody. Hope you're doing good. Welcome to the stream. Tonight I am going to be doing something slightly different where most streams I'm just kind of inking stuff, but this time around I'm going to be showing you how I refine my initial thumbnails. So if you check this out, you can kind of get an idea of how loose my thumbnails are. Like they're not like indiscernible, but they're fairly loose. I'll show you how I basically take this, tighten it up, and then move it on to the next stage of inks. I probably won't get to my inking stage, but I wanted to share this because I've kind of shared every other part of the process besides coloring, I think. Did I not do a coloring one yet? I can't remember. Maybe I didn't. But anyway, I wanted to get into that and show you just what that looks like. A lot of it is like script based. So, I mean, obviously it's a comic, but like specifically for this stage where I'm like refining and getting like the final lines kind of down, I'm way more referential to like the script at that phase because I need like my sketch to look exactly like that, you know, that script. So I mean, like that's really it. And after that, I can ink on top of it, and I'm not so worried about it because all of my information's already there in that base sketch. But yeah. And hello everybody. I wanted to say thanks to Guy in the chat for the suggestion for the, at least I believe it was your suggestion, for the Discord, the Patreon Discord we got. He suggested setting up a forum-style sketchbook section. I didn't know you could do that. So now everybody who has membership to that has their own sketchbook that they can set up, and you know, you can post in there and people can give you critiques or help you out or do whatever, or just check out your work. And you have your own dedicated sketchbook and a little mini forum on there. That's awesome. I went through that. My wife, Kim's in the chat right now. She showed me. And I was like, that's so awesome. I didn't know that you could recreate forums. It's nuts. That's like exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I wanted. So that rules. Thank you for sharing that. And for anybody who hasn't done it yet, who's a patron and wants to, check out the Discord and start a sketchbook and get to posting regularly. That's awesome. You can keep all your stuff in one place. Yeah, now not everybody's art is like mixed together. You get to see progression of one person over time, which is exactly what I've been missing for so long. It's my favorite thing about the old forums. I'm so glad it exists. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for joining me tonight. As always, if you want to help support this comic, the Patreon's $5 a month, and it has 2+ years of content, hundreds of hours of video. And if all you want to do is hop on, look at it for $5 and take everything and then take off, be my guest. It's just there to be a resource. And, you know, hopefully all the things that I've learned is helpful. Anyway, let's get to it. So this dude is gonna be crying. This is a Rutkowski brush that I'm using right now. I think it's one of the free brushes that comes on his, I don't know if he still has his Gumroad set up. Probably does, but I can't remember if it's from his oil set, but I find it to be a really good sketching brush. So that's what I'm using right now. As always, feel free to tag me in the chat at Dave Raposa if you have any questions or anything you want me to talk about. Oh man. I have a huge deadline that I have to wrap for tonight, so I have a late night for myself. After this stream, I have to hop right into that work. So that's gonna be fun. Dave, are you working on any video game concept design these days that you can talk about? I'm not working. Well, yes, I am actually. I've been working on for years. I've been working on a video game for Other Side Entertainment. I've been the art lead on that for over 2 years now. The reason I was hesitant and I was like, wait, no, I do that is because that's more like a full-time gig. And I was just, for some reason, was thinking freelance, just like, what am I working on? But yeah, so it's just like a normal part of my life at this point. But yeah, I've been working on that game for quite a while. I mean, most of it is just me working on a bunch of different iterations of creatures and characters, and I've been doing that for so long. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I really like being a part of, especially like early on in a game's development. I like being a part of the blue sky phase where just kind of anything goes and you're playing with a bunch of different styles. Like on that game, I went through so many different versions of what the game could look like. That part was very exciting in the early days. Like that's probably my favorite aspect of like games, is just what's it gonna look like finding some visual identity for it. Because I like doing that in my own stuff, like working on this comic. It's very important to me that this feels a certain way, and I want like every project that I'm a lead on or whatever, or that I just have some input on, I want to do a good job in making it have its own look and feel that's different than everything else. So I think that the game has that for sure. Just one unnecessary line drives me crazy. I'm like looking at this like, what's wrong? I'm like, oh, it's that stupid teardrop coming down, making it look like he has this perfectly defined cheek that I don't want. I don't know how necessary it is for me to get that tear in there right now, since it's going to be something a little looser in the actual thing. Have I seen the Batman Beyond movie concept art? I have. That looks amazing. I mean, you know, it looks like Spider-Verse, but it's really cool because Spider-Verse is really cool. And I think Batman Beyond deserves more love for sure. When I was a kid, I actually wasn't that crazy about it when it first came out. I remember watching it, and I didn't like love it back then. I think I've grown to like it a lot more. I had the same sort of feelings about like Big O. I don't know why. I think like the style of it was a little too mature is probably the wrong word. I mean, more so in like Big O's presentation, where I thought like, I don't know, I felt like it wasn't for me back then. And now I like love the way Big O looks. But I think kid me wasn't ready for how cool that was. Hey, thanks everybody. I think when it comes to stuff like Big O, I really love the like reserved color palette and just a very iconic style. How did I get the lead artist gig? They were working on, I can't talk about what they were hiring for initially, but I was brought on to work on a different project. And it's kind of happened to me a few times, but with this one, they hired me to initially do some like character concepts for a different game. And then they were looking through my portfolio after they saw my initial ideas for the characters. And they saw my Starvale stuff. And they really liked that.
Now you can download the podcast you love on YouTube
What?
with the YouTube Music app.
What is this? How dare you? I have ad blocker on. You son of a bitch. How'd you find your way through? Anyway. Yeah, no, they hired me for the initial game, and then they said, oh, that Starvale style's cool. What's that? And I was like, oh, that's like my comic stuff. And then they asked me if I would develop something like that for their other project. So I did. And then I became the art lead on that project. You assume every Alfred was a previous Batman? Yeah, I always liked Alfred. I should pull up my stupid comic that I did. Here, let me find it. I did one of Alfred and Batman. Where is it? It's very dumb. Sure. Yeah, I found it. Let me see if I can get to it. Oh my goodness. Can I open this in a new tab? Yeah, this here. This was a comic I did years ago for fun, which was Batman versus Devilman. It was just a stupid joke comic, but it was this thing of Devilman thinks that he has Batman up against the ropes, and then Batman reminds him, he says, you forgot one thing, and it's something about how all rich spoiled boys have a butler, and then he appears in the Bat Gundam in his G Gundam suit, Alfred's G Gundam suit. It's very stupid. This would have been a good comic. It had some good aspects to it. This was the next panel showing how the lore expands, where this girl, she's in a spaceship in Char's deck here, and they're looking at all the characters within the anime universe that they're gonna kill. And he's hired the Ninja Turtles in their very cool outfits, in their, action figure outfits to go and kill Batman. It was just going to be a ridiculous crossover of everything. If you can see here in Char's computer here, you got obviously Lupin, You got Gerald of Rivia. You got Goku there. And then you got Arthur, of course. My favorite one is Arthur. So stupid. It's so fucking dumb. It was a comic for nobody and everybody. Yo, Dave Raposa, listen to your fan damn, it slaps. What's the ratio of time you spend on everything? Actually drawing versus bookkeeping versus content, etc. How has that changed over time? I'd spend like a few minutes every morning just kind of keeping up with, you know, what I have to do with clients and making sure that I have all of my emails responded to. But outside of that, all of my time is pretty much spent drawing. I'm still terrible at sending like invoices when I have to. But I generally have so much work to do that I spend like all my time doing that. No, I didn't see Maddie's question. Where is it? How do you apply the lessons from the 4-hour work week to being an artist? I've been listening to it and feel so motivated to get rich as fuck, but I don't know how I can apply it to me. I think I read that book when I was 19, and I was super motivated after reading that book. I know, like, at this point, it's just shit that probably everybody has talked about forever. But back in the day, when that first came out, that was a pretty big deal. The way I applied it was mostly just like sticking to like a pretty strict routine, and then thinking like automation never really applied to me. Like that aspect of it wasn't something that I clung to, of like, oh, streamline everything and make it so that, you know, you don't ever have to work again. Like, I didn't like that part of it as much as the part that was like inspirational to me, of like, oh, I could just develop myself and become great and work at whatever. Like, I was weirdly affected by that book when I first read it as a kid. Like I didn't get emotional about the book. I got emotional because I was worried that I was going to be like a complete failure in my life. And after reading that, I was like, I can do it. Like, I can do something. I know I can. And I remember getting like so pumped up in my room that I would do like not crying out of like fear of losing something or like being sad and emotional. I would cry like listening, you know, like a Rocky speech or something, you know, where you get so motivated that energy like just makes you emotional. I used to do that shit all the time. I'd yell at myself in the mirror. I was crazy. I was so just worried about reliving like my parents' life of just having like nothing and not doing too hot. I just wanted to have a better life. And I was just so worried that I was going to be a piece of shit. So yeah, that's mostly what I took from that, was like all the general like life advice quotes and things. There are certain aspects to like other books like that I took to heart. One of them was David Allen's book, getting things done. Again, I'm talking about like cliche shit here, but that book helped me because there were certain parts of it that I really liked, like the elevation talk. If you know anything about like those books where they kind of talk about like reframing like how you think about goals and whatever, of like what is your 10,000 feet versus 30,000 feet versus 5,000 feet, and those types of perspectives really help me kind of reconstrue how I thought about my career and life and what I wanted to do. So like I would think like, okay, my 30,000 foot goal, which is kind of like, you know, a wider perspective on your life. What do I want to do? You know, who do I want to be as a person? What do I want like my legacy to be? Like stuff like that. And then like, you know, you go closer and closer to like smaller details of like what you're going to do. And I think having that perspective helped me a lot, for sure. One of the ones that I liked a lot that helped me to focus a bit better and think like, not like efficiently, but just think a bit cleaner, get a narrower focus. There was this thing that he did in like presentations, this David Allen dude, which I always clung on to, which was he'd have everybody look around the room and look for everything that was red in the room. And then he'd have everybody like look around, count it all, whatever, what's red in this room. And then he'd go and now look around for what's blue. And then he'd have everybody look around and, you know, now there's way more blue in the room than red, but you were narrowly focused on just red when I told you to be focused on red. So that's all you saw. And I always liked that idea because I can get tunnel vision sometimes thinking of just the wrong things. And it was nice to get that idea in my head of like, oh, right. If I start, you know, it's sort of the same idea as all the like secret shit and all that crap people were talking about, like manifesting your goals. But if you are focused on, you know, like you're looking for things in a certain direction, like what you want to do, then you'll start to see those things. But it's about having like clarity of like, oh yeah, what do you actually want this to be? Like, what am I actually looking for? What perspective should I have? Like, what should I be aligned toward? Like that sort of thing helped me a lot, and just being a bit more focused on what I wanted to do. But I love that shit. I like ate that stuff up for years. In the mirror weeping. You said tomorrow yesterday. No, I literally did crazy shit like that. Like I would look in the mirror and like yell at myself that I'm like, I can do more, that I'm better than this, like all that types of like psycho shit that, you know, you hope nobody ever sees that you do it, but I definitely did it. I was definitely that person. I freaked out. But, you know, fear is a motivator. And things worked out, so. Most everything at this stage is me just trying to get the basic idea of what this page is going to be down, because like really everything after this is very automated for me. Like I don't think a whole lot after this stage. This is my thinking stage. I just am like, oh, okay, sketch needs to get across this idea. So, you know, a lot of the work is really here. Like this is almost all of it. Everything after this is just like execution. The only thing I wish is that I sketched this page more recently than I did, because I've gotten a lot better since I initially drew this comic. So I would change a few of these like panel layouts if I were to do it again. But that's okay. The work is already done. I try not to hold myself to like a ridiculous standard of like, oh, you know, every time you get better, you should redo everything that you did before. It's like, no, I don't. Just do it. Just get the thing done. All the work is there. Finish it, move on to the next thing. You know, this comic will be what it is, and then the next comic will hopefully be better than this comic, and so on and so forth. I just realized that I haven't drawn this lady's teeth yet. So of course she's gonna have rotten, nasty teeth. She's gonna be missing teeth. She's gonna have like holes in her tongue and stuff. She's gonna have that meth mouth. Derek says, hey Dave, on topic of perspectives, I went to a lecture of yours years ago. You spoke about the concept of an ivory tower. Really respect it and shared it with some of my students this week. What did I talk about? I'm interested in... Can you give me like a slight refresher on what that was about? Been a while since I've done a lecture. It's been a while since I've done anything live, like a workshop or something. Was about younger artists look up to artists who don't want to share info. Yeah. That was always like a strange thing to me, the fear mentality that like there was only a certain amount of whatever success for you. Like when, not that like everybody has to share everything they've learned, but I think that if you know, if you learn from like a free resource, whatever, or you just gain from other people in the world, it's important to give back. I mean, that's also sort of an old mindset, I think, generally speaking. I think people are way more open to sharing things and helping each other now than they were when I started. I think when I started, there was like there's like an older generation that keeps things close, doesn't share a lot of info. that I'm also like, I'm speaking of like back in the day when there wasn't a million tutorials online. You kind of had to go out of your way to find stuff. I had to like download old PDFs of books. Which is, it's actually not a terrible thing. I honestly think an overabundance of information can be a bad thing. Especially because, and this is going to sound like I'm dogging on people, which I guess I am in a sense, but I don't mean it to be directed at anybody. I think that there's just a culture around people selling information of things that they, are experts in, air quotes. And there's a ton of people who are like, this is how you do this. And they're not very established, or they haven't figured it out completely yet. And if they frame it that way, of like, this is just what I've learned so far, I'm still a novice in the grand scheme of things, whatever. If they say that, then I have no qualms at all with that. But I definitely think it can be a bit harmful when there's so much information and then the loudest voices are people who aren't very good at art. And you just go like, you're teaching your bad habits to people, or you're teaching your journey along the way to people, versus like it's actual, fact, like this is how you do it, which can be harmful. Like you can teach your bad habits to people, and I think that can be an issue. So sometimes I look back on the same sort of whatever stuff that I like learned from, where I go like, yeah, there was like nothing that I could find that could help me. But at the same time, the only stuff I could find was very well established professionals who've been teaching a long time and had stuff that you could get and download and whatever. So there were fewer options of things to learn from, but at the same time, they were higher quality if you did find them. Versus now, everybody's an expert and nobody, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like they're working professionals all the time, or like everybody who has like a course online is super duper experienced. So that stuff is a little shitty. Like for me, like it's like I have way more experience than a lot of the people that are just like on YouTube teaching. And I would never put myself out there as like an expert. I could never say that about myself, because I know all the things I don't know, but I would never put a front out there like, this is the end all be all. Like you heard it from an expert here. It's like, no, I'm still learning. Like I still don't know so many things. Like one of the harder things about helping somebody is like, like they say it in martial arts and stuff, but I feel like it's across the board, where it's like much easier to teach somebody who doesn't already have a bunch of bad habits that they've learned from somebody who isn't very good. Like it's easier to teach somebody from scratch than it is to have somebody like relearn the right way how to do things. So in that way, it might be a little bit weirder to get info from people. But I mean, for real, like there's so much stuff that you don't know. I mean, if you ever learn from my stuff, I always try to tell you that like this is just what I've learned so far. Like that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at, I'm not the best. I'm not Leyendecker. I'm not like this world famous. I'm not Frazetta. Like, I'm not one of these people. I'm just a guy. I'm just the guy. Just a guy versus I'm the guy. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm very confident in myself. I know what I want to do. I know who I am. But I think like that's been like the most successful thing for me, is just believing in myself that I could do this, even if I am not, Waterhouse or any of these other people. My first day as an instructor, I told my students we were peers, no overlording as a teacher. Yeah, exactly. Like, I love seeing people who are great at what they do. I mean, like, it doesn't matter how long they've been doing it. Like, one of my favorite things is seeing young people coming in with like just a crazy clear voice, and you just see their work and you go like, holy shit. And like, I do not pretend to have any sort of ego about any of this shit. It's like, if somebody's better than me and they're 19, I mean, that's amazing. That's the best. I love that. Like, so happy. Like, I get so happy for young people who are just continually upping it over and over again, like what you can do. I want to learn from these people. Like, if I were to separate myself from every other person and think that I'm some wholly original individual, I'm just robbing myself of so many experiences. Ego is crazy for some people. The working title of this comic right now is Veil. We'll see what the final name is. It's based off of my other comic series, Star Veil. Which is the next thing I'm doing alongside Steve Lichtman Volume 3, which will be a part of the, well, at least aspects of it will be part of the Patreon, Steve Lichtman, and then Star Veil will definitely be part of the Patreon, and I'll be doing that larger book issue by issue. Because with a book like that, it's going to be so huge that I'm going to need time to kind of like let it breathe and hopefully make some money on individual issues. I still have to find a place where, or at least like a way to do it through Patreon, where people can like buy the issues individually. Because I need to find a way to make that sustainable over time before I have enough content to run a Kickstarter for the physical books. Any advice on how to create comics, or just go for it because the composition of panels is kind of hard? I would say go for it and learn along the way. Like, if you go to my early comics, like if you go to my website, you can click the little comics tab and it'll take you over to some of those. And some of the early stuff I was doing, like joke stuff, was like the Insecure Warrior and all that. Like when I was doing those, like I didn't really know what I was doing. Here, I'll pull it up. So like if I go and look at some of this stuff, like if you go and look at this Insecure Warrior thing, like this is when I first started just messing around with the idea of making comics. I didn't really have a plan. I was just kind of messing around. And I just like I had like one core concept was, what if a warrior who looked perfect and, you know, was beautiful, muscled and all that, what if he hated his body and didn't believe that girls liked him and was super insecure? Like, I liked that idea. So I was like, I'll just make that fantasy adventure comic. I'll do a couple issues just as like test things for what I could do. And I think I looked at like Tumblr or something for comics that other people did, and I just mimicked that. I was like, oh, well, this is a cool format. It's just like a vertical scrolling format. I'll just design a comic that way. And I had a bit of an understanding of composition just from doing paintings for a decent amount of time. And then from there, I kind of just went for it. And these weren't anything special, you know, nothing really going on here. I was just doing like very quick sketches. And then from here, I went to doing Starvale. And Starvale was another like vertical scrolling comic that you can see it here. And I don't know. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of went for it. My best guess as to what I would do for a comic. I had some like big shape ideas of what I wanted to do for like panel layouts. But I was still just like, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't feel like I could draw very well. So I just did what I could. And then I started to think like, well, I want to do animation, so that will be something to set me apart because my drawings aren't very good. At least I could do that. So then I started doing animated panels just to make it something that people would want to look at because it'd be visually interesting. So yeah, like you can see that it's just like an interesting idea. This is back in the day. I think I did this in 2013. So like 11 years ago. But yeah, I didn't really know what this was. I was like writing it issue to issue. I didn't have a plan. I just went into it. And now I have way more experience writing stuff and everything else involved in making a comic. So stuff has gotten way better since then. But like my evolution from that stuff to, you know, some of this sort of thing with Steve, like this isn't that crazy either. Like this, like my very first issue of Steve Lichman looked like this. So I mean, and then the last issue that's up here looked like this, and then obviously there's way more issues after this in the books. But yeah, they get better towards the end. But I mean, my best advice for anybody making comics is to just go for it. You just have to make stuff. Like just make a bunch of things. Just keep on working at it over and over and over again, and you'll get somewhere. Like that's really it. Like I learned how to do script writing, learned how to lay out panels, learned how to do compositions, pacing, like all that stuff came over time. And now I feel, you know, confident in doing that stuff, and now I can do this sort of thing, and I feel like I just trust the process after doing it over and over. What happened with the Skull and Shark project? Hate from France. No, love from France. Thank you. I'm gonna be working on it again. It's gonna be similar in style to like this stuff, except moodier colors and all that. But I like the like inky paint feel. So this is me basically auditioning for the part of making Skull and Shark and everything else I want to make. So I'm kind of getting a feel for like how are all these things going to look, and this is helping me a lot. So I need to do like these types of comics to get a hold on it. With music by Laserhawk. I mean that album's already done. Did you work from a script to start, or did you build the story with thumbnails? I started this story in particular. Well, I was just going for a lot of like walks, really. And every time I went for a walk, I would just think about story stuff. And I'd listen to like soundtracks and things, and then I'd have like a feeling of like what a cool story would be, and I'd start to like see pictures in my head of what it would look like, what the vibe would be, that sort of thing. And then from there, I'd just start building it out. But yeah, lots of like really long walks helped a lot coming up with ideas. And around that time, that's when I have like, I don't know, like maybe 5 different scripts from then that I now want to bring into reality. I managed to take the core concepts of those scripts and turn them into aspects of the larger Starvale story so that they're not just random. Sorry, I had to think about what this character was saying. Make sure this drawing makes sense. Definitely get quieter in the thumbnail process and refinement. Would you say it's better to have realistic rendering on your concepts, or cell shading semi-realistic would also be great in terms of being a concept artist? I think that the easier read is generally the one I gravitate towards. So if the heavy rendering muddies up the visual, where it's harder to kind of see just like the core concept, then I would lean more towards drawings. In general, I lean more towards clear drawings than render for concept art. I think it's much better just in terms of like how you can use it. And I think most people who have experience like working in games feel the same way. Like, realistic rendering is pretty, and you might be able to sell an idea with that. But I think if you can represent your idea simplistically and it still works, then it'll work realistically. Trying to get a mixture of remorse, a little bit of anger and sadness. It's a hard facial expression to nail down. That's probably what I spend most of my time on when I'm working on comics. Especially for Steve, because it's comedy. Like, almost all of my time is spent in the face, like just trying to convey their reaction or just their expression, or somebody being dumbfounded or just sick of the person they're talking to, like, or somebody making someone cringe or whatever, like that. All of those things are the hardest to convey. So that's what I spend like all my time on when I'm sketching. I'll just like erase and redraw a face like 10 times until I get the right feeling across. As soon as I'm done sketching this page out and I have my render there, that's probably when I'm going to call it, because I have a crazy deadline tomorrow. Terrible deadline. I'm not blaming anybody, by the way. If you're one of the people I'm working with, I'm not saying that's a terrible deadline because of you. I'm saying it's a very intense deadline for me. So I have to do my best to wrap that up. Other than familiarity, is there a reason you choose Photoshop over Krita for this stage? I just like this one specific sketching brush. That's really it. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, from like start to finish with inks and this phase, I would say a page like this runs me about 4 hours total. Is about the amount of time I spend. So it's pretty quick. So I can do a couple of these a day if that were my only job. Unfortunately, it's not. Oh yeah, there's way more people in the chat now, so I'll mention it again. If you're a member of the Patreon and you haven't checked it out yet, my wife has set up a sketchbook section on the Discord. So if you were looking for a forum style sketchbook section, a la conceptart.org back in the day, we have one. Hey. So everybody has their own individual sketchbook. I've been trying out your process from your Knuckles video on Patreon. I love it for characters. Do you apply the same steps with environments too, or do you kind of freeball it? Thanks. I do, insofar as that's kind of how I like sketch out the environment, and then I build up textures after that with other brushes and things. Like a lot of the environment work that I do, it all like starts in Krita, and then I tend to finish it all in Photoshop. It's like all the texturing and things like that. This is my version of this character starting to go Super Saiyan. Except my character's not very happy that they have to go Super Saiyan. Actually very sad. Wish I didn't have to kill this old lady. All right, cool. So the sketch for this page is done. So what I usually do after I sketch it out like this. I sketched it out, flipped one direction, and then when I do the final inks, I just flip it back the other way so that I can see all the errors that were going on, and I address them all in that next inked version. And that's how I usually go about just streamlining the process. I'll like sketch, like the regular orientation, and then refinement will be flipped, and then the final lines will be the other way around. I do not use Procreate. Always had a hard time with it. Hopefully I can do better. Is the next challenge for everyone in the Discord, or is it more choose Dave's adventure? It's going to be in the Discord, where I'll be like submitting, the concepts for each phase of the, well, okay, let me say this to everybody who's interested in this. The next Discord challenge, I'm going to show by example how I would go about doing game development, like for an art style as an art lead. Like how would I take a game from concept to this visual version, whatever, that everybody can see. It's like, how do we get that across to the team, what it's going to look like, options and whatnot. And basically I'm going to put forth like an idea, and then we're going to go from the community and figure out like what exactly is this game, what aesthetic do you all want, you can vote on these things, etc. And then we start to build out, like, here's a character concept, here's like a base idea for the world, here's like 4 different sketches of that, and then from there people can be like, oh, it'd be cool if it was this type of look or whatever, and then development from that point on. And basically showing like through iteration what happens in that development pipeline, so that instead of me just being like, hey, I'm going to critique your work for each one of these individual challenges, you get to see how that would work in the field. Like if you're working for a game company or something, like what does that actually look like? Because you don't get to see every step of the way from most people's processes of like, how do they do that in games? Like what is that? It's like I see, when they post it after the fact, when the game comes out, here's the concepts and everything else. It's like, but what is that process? Like, how did they get there? How did that style become that style? Like that sort of thing is what I'd like to cover, and that will all be dictated by the group. So you can all, if this ends up devolving into a half girl, half kangaroo hentai dating sim, then that's what it is. You will not break me, is what I'm telling you. I have gone to dark places, and I will go there again, if you so wish it. So anyway, thank you all for hanging out. I greatly appreciate it, and for all your support. It's really nice to see these streams just being consistent. And we had a couple lives that like blew up, which was nice. I'm gonna be doing like a couple random things coming up. I got an interview I'm gonna do with an artist on Monday. I don't know when I'll be dropping the video for that, but it's gonna be a cool one. I won't spoil it, but it's going to be an artist from Nigeria who's successful. And I want to make the point by interviewing this person that you can really do this no matter your circumstances or where you're at. I think it's going to be very good, and good for a lot of people who are potentially starting out or have doubts. But yeah. Anyway, love to you all. If you'd like, you can subscribe to this YouTube, and I'll be live every Thursday at the same time. Normally I run a little longer than this, but I have to go to do that deadline. yeah, I'll be posting on the Patreon as soon as I'm wrapped up on this deadline, because it's just taking all my time. But yeah, thanks as always. I hope that you all have been doing well. I hope that this sketching phase of the comic process was helpful in some way. And I'll see you next week if I don't see you all sooner.